have to fear is
in war,
fear itself.
There is no substitute for victory.
Let us never negotiate out of fear.
We stand undivided, forever united, fighting hand in hand for the liberty we've earned, for glory and honor, for our sons and daughters, ever mindful of the lessons we've learned. Let the torch of freedom burn.
Welcome to the intersection of faith and politics. This is WallBuilders Live with David Barton and Rick Green. Thanks so much for joining us today. Visit our websites at wallbuilders.com and wallbuilderslive.com. This program is dedicated to looking at the issues of the day from both a biblical and a historical perspective. You can catch us Monday through Friday, and you can get us online if we're not on a station in your area. Check out our stations listed there on the website at wallbuilderslive.com. We got a two-part series for you today and tomorrow from our ProFamily Legislators Conference. We were thrilled to have Todd Starnes with us. Todd is the host of Fox News and Commentary, heard across the nation, has great columns that he writes, and also a regular contributor to Fox and Friends and FoxNews.com. You've probably seen him on Human Events or Townhall.com. Anyway, we love his commentaries, and he often finds some of those things happening across the country where religious liberty is being stamped out in our nation, exposes them, and gets them turned around. So we were thrilled to have him at the conference. We want to share his talk with you, our listeners here at wallbuilderslive.com. We're going to do that today and tomorrow. It'll take two programs to do it, so we're going to go to the ProFamily Legislators Conference right now with David Barton.
Let me introduce our next speaker to you. You will have a bio on him in your notebook. I just want to give you a couple of personal thoughts that I have. And we talked, for those of you that were here last year, you look at polling, the two most liberal and anti-traditional value aspects in the entire nation. Number one is professors. Professors have a concentration of liberals 10 times higher than the American population. And the next most liberal concentration occurs in the media. And so within the media and within academia is where you find the most opposition to the things that most Americans believe. And within that, even though Fox is much more on the conservative side of what's there, there's still pushback within that. But Todd Starnes, you see him on Fox News all the time if you watch Fox News. Todd and the writing that he has done has been very, very uncompromising, outspoken about his own faith, like you guys are in your legislatures. You know, sometimes you get even pushback from your own leadership on faith issues. And Todd has been that way. And what I've always appreciated about Todd is that there is such a trust factor that people now come to him. I was watching the military. We were dealing in the Congress with trying to provide conscience protection in the military because so many things were coming out of the administration that were just whacking away at faith. And it was so cool the way that Todd was able to break story after story after story of what was going on in the military, that military guys felt comfortable coming to him and telling him the stories of what was happening. And so that scrutiny has been really good. Randy Forbes and others in the U.S. Congress with what's called the Prayer Caucus. We have 103 members in Congress that watch out for religious liberties. They were very good about leaning on the administration, calling in 4-star generals and saying, what in the heck's going on at this base, and using Todd's stories to do it. So Todd has been a very faithful correspondent for that aspect of religious liberties that America overwhelmingly polls in favor of. I appreciate the stand that he has taken, and he's just so good in so many areas. In your notebook, you're going to have a section of just Todd Starnes articles. We got links to all these articles Todd's done, and they're really, really cool articles. He's got an official bio that you can see there, but I think you guys will be familiar with Todd. Todd, come on, bro.
Well, good morning. Sweet mercy, it is cold in Texas. My word. You know how, I thought it was bad in New York City. I had a really nice flight getting here, but I had to go through, you go through TSA at LaGuardia. And I always get pulled over for the full service treatment by the TSA. Now, you know about the patent swab, but now they have the turn and cough, you know, with the Ebola, because everybody's got Ebola. Every time somebody blows their nose, we have a breaking news alert. But it is finally great to be back in the great state of Texas. And before I get to my prepared remarks, you may notice from my accent, I am not a native New Yorker. I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, and I've lived in New York City and worked at Fox News for going on 10 years now. So I first of all want to bring you greetings from the Fox News corner of the world. And I want to say thank you for, that's all right, y'all can applaud. Now, if any of you folks watch MSNBC, we're going to have some intercessory prayer in the back afterwards. So, Brother David will be leading that. But one of the things that has troubled me about the South, my homeland, is the fact that I call it culture creep. And we have seen a good number of Northerners move down to the southern states, and kind of like kudzu, they take over. And it is not a good thing. And case in point, the last time I was in Dallas, which was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I sat down for breakfast at the big fancy hotel, and I asked for a glass of sweet tea and a buttermilk biscuit. And the waitress looked at me and she said, well, we don't have sweet tea. We have unsweetened tea, and it comes in a bag. And I said, well, that's troublesome. And I said, well, what about the biscuit? And she goes, well, we don't have biscuits, but we have something called a bran muffin with flaxseed, which I'm sure is great if you're a constipated bird, but not a human being. So all that to say, this morning, they made me a biscuit over here at the restaurant. So praise the Lord for those great people. I want to tell you a little bit about what it's like to live in New York City, because really my remarks are about the culture and what's happening in the culture at large. And I told you I'm from Memphis, where the tea is sweet, the chicken is fried, and the biscuits are buttered. But in New York City, the tea is not sweet, the chicken is not fried, and the biscuits are called bagels. I live in a place called Brooklyn, New York, among the indigenous liberal population there. As a journalist, to truly understand the American liberal, I felt I needed to live in their natural habitat. So I live among the kale, chip, and arugula people. These are the non-meat eater Americans. And it is a very unusual place. Are you guys familiar with the hipsters? All right, the hipsters are the skinny jeans people. They're a very ironic group of individuals, very nice and very pleasant. These are the type of people that will, for example, buy a T-shirt for $120 that you could get at Goodwill for $5. And so they wear these things called the skinny jeans. And so I really wanted to kind of fit in my neighborhood when I moved in, because let's be honest, when you see me, you think either two things, Baptist or Republican, which I actually both. But that's just kind of what I like ooze. And so we have a fashion department at Fox News Channel, and these folks are responsible for making us look presentable on the air. So I went to the ladies and I explained my predicament, and I said, I really want to kind of fit in the neighborhood. And they said, well, Todd, you got to go buy yourself some skinny jeans. And so I went down to the skinny jeans store, and these things are like teeny tiny. And anyway, it took a shoehorn and a tub of butter to get my big toe in, and that's about as far as they went. So it was not a good look for me. I'm also, I know. I'm also one of the few national reporters who's a proud member of the National Rifle Association, the NRA. And I've got a story to tell about that. My mailman came to me one day. I'm also the only person in the neighborhood who subscribes to Gun and Garden magazine. And my mailman, he shook his head one day when he saw me walking by with my NRA ball cap, and he goes, "You must be Mr. Starnes." I said, "Yes, I am." You know, that interesting, when you join the NRA, they give you a ball cap. It's a black ball cap with the gold letters NRA. Well, in my neighborhood, on the weekends, it is like that scene out of the Airplane parody movie back in the day when they're all the people, the Hare Krishnas, everybody's asking for money. That's how the liberal advocacy groups are in my neighborhood. I mean, everybody's out there asking for money, and they're very aggressive. And so I figured out a way, especially the PETA people, the people eating for the ethical treatment of animals, you know, those folks. And so anyway, they will like stand in front of you as you're leaving the supermarket and ask you for money. So anyway, I kind of figured out a way to stop that. And feel free to use this. So I was at the market one day, came out with my NRA ball cap, and the woman comes up to me and goes, "Sir, do you love animals?" And I said, "Only if they're deep fried." And just never bothered me again. So y'all feel free to use that. I'm one of those people that President Obama talked about, and I'm sure many of you guys can relate to this. Back in 2007, he was talking to a gathering in San Francisco, and he talked about people who cling to their guns and their religion. And he said, those of us who cling to our guns and religion are better Americans. Well, this morning, I want to tell you that I am proud to call myself a gun-toting, chicken-eating, Bible-clinging son of a Baptist. And I don't think we're all that bitter. I think we're blessed. We're going to get serious here in a second. But actually, that was kind of serious. I remember it was about a year and a half ago. I got a message from a group of ladies, great conservative ladies, in their senior years, and they have a book club in Washington D.C. and they call themselves the Liberty Bells, and they read conservative books. And they were reading my second book called Dispatches from Bitter America. And they asked me if I would come and speak at their gathering, and I said I would be honored to do so. One of the ladies in the group was one of President Reagan's secretaries, and she gave me one of his tie clips as a gift, and it's a cherished gift on my bookshelf at the Fox News corner of the world. And as we gathered for a group picture, these wonderful senior ladies in this antebellum home in the outskirts of Washington, D.C., my assistant, who is a good Southern Baptist young man, was taking our photograph. And I was surrounded by 30 or 40 of these wonderful senior saints. And right before he took the photograph, our hostess said, "Okay, girls, whip them out." Now, as a good Baptist, I had to think for a second, do I look this way or that way? And my poor assistant's eyeballs were just as big as saucers. And then I caught a gleam out of the corner of my eye, and I realized all of the ladies had whipped out their personal carry conceal permits, and they had their guns. And others were clinging to their Bibles, just like it was. So if you go to our Facebook fan page, you will see this great photograph of me surrounded by all these pistol-packing grandmas. So I write for those grandmothers, and I write for you guys, and I write for your constituents. I tell our stories to the nation, stories about people of faith in God, stories about patriots, people who love America and love the traditions and the values that this country was founded upon. And friends, I stand here today to share with you stories from the front lines of this culture war.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. As Christians become more active in politics, they must remember to elevate principles above party loyalty. Perhaps the best illustration of this comes from the life of Founding Father Benjamin Rush, a signer of the Declaration of Independence who served in the presidential administrations of John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison, each of whom was from a different political party. When Benjamin Rush was asked of his personal party affiliation, he responded, "I've been alternately called an aristocrat and a Democrat. I am neither. I am a Christocrat. I believe all power will fail of producing order and happiness in the hands of man. He alone who created and redeemed man is qualified to govern him." Like Benjamin Rush, we too must remain Christocrats regardless of our personal party affiliation.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
I'm here to tell you there is a war on religious liberty in the United States of America. This war is not targeting people of the Muslim faith. It's not targeting people of the Jewish faith, the Hindu faith, or the Buddhist faith. This war on religious liberty is targeting people of the Christian faith. And over the next few moments, I want to share some stories with you about what's happening in this war. Because this is one battle that the mainstream media has been AWOL. You know, at this very moment, as we sit here together in this room, for the first time in the history of our great nation, Muslim prayers are being delivered inside National Cathedral. The Muslims consider it to be a historic moment, which it is. But they say it's also an important moment to show that we are a free religious people. But I do wonder why the National Cathedral saw fit to invite a group that opposes the very tenets of the Christian faith. That's happening right now at this very hour. This morning, I'd like to talk to you about several areas where religious liberty is under attack. Rick Warren told me in my office that he believes the war on religious liberty will be the civil rights issue of our generation. Just think about that for a moment. The civil rights issue of our generation. Listen to this quote from Tim Shaw from Georgetown University's Religious Freedom Project. Threats to religious liberty are mounting, he said. It won't be long before great institutions in this country are stripped of their tax-exempt status, and we will be in a very different social, legal, and political environment, I think, in about 10 years. Dr. Russell Moore of the Great Southern Baptist Convention, my denomination, said this, and I quote, "The sense of alarm is rising. Churches and religious institutions must be able to equip people to keep the next generation out of jail and to train up a generation who is willing to go to jail, all for the cause of Christ." You know, as I mentioned to you, I live in Brooklyn, New York, not too terribly far from the Barclays Arena. I had just finished writing my latest book, and I have a copy of it, and I hope you pick up a copy of this, called Godless America. This is the evidence that demands a verdict. When people tell you there's no religious war, there's no war on religious liberty, you can show them the evidence in this book, documented evidence. And if they still don't believe you, this is a hardcover book. You can hit them on the back of the head with it, pound some sense into their brains. But I just finished writing this book, and I was trying to come up with the introduction, try to bring the whole story together. About this time, you might remember Phil Robertson, one of the great heroes of the faith from Duck Dynasty, was coming under fire for comments he made about traditional marriage. And then, of course, we all remember what happened in Barclays Arena, where the word twerking was introduced to the national lexicon. And all of a sudden it came to me, the opening lines of this book. I sort of feel like a Duck Dynasty guy living in a Miley Cyrus world, where right is wrong and wrong is right, and it's as if all of our values have been turned upside down. If you remember, Miley Cyrus was celebrated for that public act of debauchery, and yet Phil Robertson was castigated simply for standing up for traditional marriage. The first area I'd like to talk about is the military. And thank the Lord for our elected officials in Washington who have defended these brave Christian soldiers who are facing religious persecution. Because under this president's administration, our great military has been turned into a social engineering petri dish. One Rear Admiral at the Coast Guard told a gathering at the National Day of Prayer that they've been told to hide their Christian faith. He tells the story of how a soldier tried to commit suicide and he failed. And this admiral stood at this young man's bedside, this tormented soul. And the Coast Guard admiral told us that it was against the regulations for him to pray with this young man. It was against the regulations for him to give a Bible to this young man. And this admiral said that he was more than willing to break those regulations. I reported in my column at foxnews.com about a very disturbing training session that was given to members of our military. The information that came from this soldier was so disturbing that I told him I had to have more proof. And so he sent me the PowerPoint demonstration that they had just been given at a diversity training seminar. And at this diversity training seminar, the subject was religious extremism and domestic hate groups. And so the military told these soldiers what to be on the lookout for. First of all, they said that groups like the Family Research Council and American Family Association are examples of domestic hate groups. Now, I want to tell you something, folks. I just ate moons over my hammy with Tony Perkins from the Family Research Council at a Denny's in Houston a couple of weeks ago, and he is the farthest thing from a domestic hate group. But according to the military, our military, they're a domestic hate group. But they went on.
Hey, this is Tim Barton with WallBuilders. And as you've had the opportunity to listen to WallBuilders Live, you've probably heard the wealth of information about our nation, about our spiritual heritage, about the religious liberties, about all the things that makes America exceptional. And you might be thinking, as incredible as this information is, I wish there was a way that I could get one of the WallBuilders guys to come to my area and share with my group, whether it be a church, whether it be a Christian school or public school or some political event or activity. If you're interested in having a WallBuilder speaker come to your area, you can get on our website at www.wallbuilders.com, and there's a tab for scheduling. And if you'll click on that tab, you'll notice there's a list of information from speakers' bios to events that are already going on, and there's a section where you can request an event to bring this information about who we are, where we came from, our religious liberties and freedoms. Go to the WallBuilders website and bring a speaker to your area.
Let the torch of freedom burn.
They listed examples of religious extremism, Al-Qaeda and Hamas. And then they said here in this country, religious extremism can be found in Roman Catholicism and evangelical Christianity. This is what they're teaching our fighting men and women. When I contacted the military, they said, oh, this is just an isolated case. This was an anomaly. Well, after our story came out, guess what happened? We started discovering more anomalies. And it's really troubling, the military's explanation, that these were just rogue instructors delivering material that had not been approved by the military. Well, that sort of tells me there's a leadership problem in the military. But it doesn't stop there. We understand that Baptist chaplains were fired from a VA training program simply because they refused to stop praying in the name of Jesus Christ. Those chaplains are now suing. We also know that Bibles were banned from Walter Reed Hospital, but that ban was reversed. Why was it reversed? Because godly lawmakers in Congress took a stand and said, we will not allow this to happen. They made a difference. Those lawmakers took a stand and they facilitated good change. One day I got an email from a soldier. He was stationed in Afghanistan at a forward operating base. And this brave young man wrote to me, he said, Mr. Starnes, you're not going to believe what's happening at this very moment. I'm watching as they're taking down the cross off of our chapel. And I'm watching as they take the doors of our chapel off the hinges. You may wonder, why would they do that? Because the glass in those doors was shaped like crosses. And the military said that was against regulations. These are the kinds of stories that I cover at Fox News. It's not just the military, though, where this is happening. We're also seeing this happen in public schools. Many of you heard the story about InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. The University of California university system banned this long-established, cherished college ministry. And the reason why is their policies for leadership violated the state of California's non-discrimination laws. Now, I want to stop for just a second. You're going to hear that word quite a bit over the next few moments. Non-discrimination. When you hear that word, you better buckle your belt, because that means Christians are about to be discriminated against. So, here's what happened with the InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. They have a requirement. If you want to be a leader of InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, you have to be a Christian. The state of California says that's discrimination. You cannot require Christian clubs and organizations to hold to a specific set of beliefs. Otherwise, you break the law. Now, this is not just California. This is also happening in places like Tennessee at Vanderbilt University. It's happening in places like Massachusetts. But it's ironic because there are a couple of groups that are actually exempt from this policy. Fraternities and sororities, for example. The fraternities can be exclusively male and the sororities can be exclusively female. But Christian groups, they cannot have exclusionary rules in their guidelines. You may have seen the report in the briefing document they gave you over in Lincoln, Nebraska. They're all about gender inclusivity over there in Lincoln, Nebraska. And they're very concerned because, and I just have to tell you, I'm kind of old school. Back when I was growing up, we just had little boys and little girls. That was the 1970s. But over in Lincoln, Nebraska, they were very concerned about being gender inclusive. So they told the teachers they had to start banning words. They're no longer allowed to call the children boys and girls because that might offend people. And you can't call them ladies and gentlemen. So instead, they wanted to call the children purple penguins. I don't get it. Purple penguins. So I opined about this in my column, and I was just wondering what the gender inclusive word for stupid is, because they got a whole mess of it in Lincoln, Nebraska. There's a school in Ventura, California. They banned a football booster club from selling Chick-fil-A sandwiches. Now, I understand that I think we're all brothers and sisters here, and we've got probably a good bit of Baptists and Methodists and Catholics and Presbyterians, and we may have some Pentecostals. I saw somebody shouting a little while ago. And for the sake of full disclosure, I went to Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee, which is a Church of God school, but I'm Southern Baptist, so I'm kind of a Baptist-costal. I can't speak in tongues, but I can jump a few pews, so it's So anyway, all that to say, I think we can all agree about something about Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is the official chicken of Jesus. It's in the New Testament. And so there's a school out in Ventura, and they got a local Chick-fil-A, and the folks at Chick-fil-A, I got to tell you something. When you walk into a Chick-fil-A restaurant, there's just a spirit of happiness there. It's just something about it. And when they say, my pleasure, they really, truly mean it. There's just something about that.
Out of time for today, folks. That was Todd Starnes at the ProFamily Legislators Conference just a few weeks ago. Tune in tomorrow on WallBuilders Live, and we'll pick up right where we left off. You've been listening to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided.